Imagine you're in a medieval Arab world and you're going on a long journey. Weather conditions are going to be harsh. You're going to be traveling through the desert. If you're rich enough, you'd take your camel with you. You'd take your sack of water, but you also need food. Food that will last, that will keep you energized enough for this long and harsh journey. What did the medieval Arabs eat and take with them on long journeys? Well, let's find out. And welcome to the Golden Middle Age. This food is known as Sawik. It's been around for over 1,000 years and it also is eaten up until today, and we'll talk about that later on. So what is Sawik? It's a simple food really. It consists of flour or oats, and you can put dates with it, honey, milk, and it will last you for a very, very long time. And that was one of the key benefits of this food. You'd probably make it by sauteing it slowly over a warm fire, and then you'd add whatever you want with it, and you'd take it in a bag with you, and it would last you for a very long time. If you have a journey that will take days and days and days, this food was the go-to. But it wasn't just good for its long shelf life. It was very nutritious, because if you think about it, oats are eaten even in today's world. Oatmeal, porridge, whatever you want to call it. And it's very, very nutritious. And then you add the dates and the honey, then you're going to have a superfood that will keep you energized, keep you full of nutrition for your very, very long journey. And as I said earlier in the video, it's actually eaten up until today because it's considered as a prophetic tradition, or in Arabic, a sunnah, because the Prophet Muhammad used to eat it. So this again was a food that was even eaten before the medieval times, and of course it carried on into the Middle Ages. And it was something that the Prophet Muhammad would eat, offer to his guests as some sort of sweet. So it was quite a versatile food that you can use on occasions, on many occasions. And therefore it's even made up until today in the Arab world. And hopefully we're going to try and make it later on. So make sure you stick around and watch how we make it, well, our attempt anyway, and see if it works out for us. And by the way, guys, I know it's been a while, but we're back and we're going to hopefully post more and more content in the coming weeks and months. So please make sure you like, subscribe, leave a thumbs up, and let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you think about it, Sawik doesn't really contain ingredients that are hard to find. So this would have also been an ideal food for medieval peasants living in the Arab and Islamic world. Medieval peasants all over the world, actually, not just in the Arab world, had tough lives. Their work was very physically demanding. They had tough labor to do. So they needed something to keep them going throughout these tiresome days. And they couldn't really afford the luxury foods like chicken, or meat would be something rare. But they had alternatives. Obviously rice, because it was a grain, it was easily accessible and affordable for peasants. But also this food, Sawik. Again, it's made out of simple ingredients like oats and some sort of wheat flour, which again is not hard for a medieval peasant to find and make and buy. And then you mix it in with some honey or milk or dates, which again are also quite available, especially in the Arab world. You have an abundance of dates and these sort of ingredients. So if you think about it, a medieval peasant would actually enjoy this type of food because it was easy to make, very nutritious, accessible for them, and affordable. And this would keep them going throughout the day, throughout their very physical lives, to make sure they're energized, they have all the nutrition they need, and they get their daily needs in. Moving on to a bit more history about Sawik. It's actually such a popular food, and was a popular food during the medieval times, that it actually has a battle named after it. Now this battle did take place slightly before the Middle Ages, during the time of the Prophet Muhammad and the establishment of the religion of Islam. It was known in Arabic as Ghazwat al-Sawik. Ghazwa is a different term used to describe a sort of confrontation, right? Because just to quickly talk about the terminology used, so in Arabic you have a harb, which is a war, but then you have a ma'araka, which is a battle when two sides fight each other. But then there's also a ghazwa. Now a ghazwa is described as a sort of incursion, a surprise attack, or a campaign. but it doesn't necessarily mean that a confrontation took place. But if you did end up going on a sort of military incursion, it will be regarded as a ghazwa rather than a battle, a ma'raka. And this is what happened in Ghazwat al-Sawik. To give you a little background story, as you know, the main enemy of the Prophet Muhammad in his life was Abu Sufyan. Now, he was a very powerful figure of the Quraysh. He had economic and political power and dominance really over Mecca and also Arabia during that time. When the Prophet came with his message of Islam, it threatened the interests of the likes of Abu Sufyan. Obviously, firstly, you're preaching a new religion, saying there's only one God. They had a different religion where they'd worship idols. But on another level, on a political and economic and social level, his dominance was going to be threatened because, again, Islam came to bring social change. There was a lot of inequality in Arabia at the time. There was slavery, there was racism, and there was economic inequality, big economic inequality. Islam came to fix those issues. So this was going to be a big threat for Abu Sufyan and his tribe and his people. And therefore, they fought the Prophet on many occasions. Ghazwat al-Sawik came after the Battle of Badr. Now, the army of Abu Sufyan in Badr fought the army of the Prophet Muhammad, but they lost that battle. And this was such a shocking and surprising defeat to them because the Prophet during the Battle of Badr was outnumbered. I think the army of Abu Sufyan had around 1,100 fighters, whereas the Prophet only had 313. Abu Sufyan again had more means to fund his war against the Prophet Muhammad. He had economic power, he had the political power, and Islam was still in its early days, and they were under siege, the followers of the Prophet Muhammad. So they had this battle at Badr, which looked like a certain victory for the army of Abu Sufyan, but they were defeated. And this sent shockwaves across Arabia. And Abu Sufyan was adamant that he wanted revenge because he lost a lot of family members during that battle. And these family members were big personalities in Quraysh, in Arabia and in his tribe. So this guy Abu Sufyan went out for revenge. He was so adamant about his revenge that he said things like, I won't shower, or I won't fix my appearance. I won't even see my wives or the woman I spend time with until I get my revenge. They went to a place known as Qarqarat al-Qudur and they attacked it. They killed a few Muslims, burnt a few trees, and then they withdrew before the Prophet Muhammad and his army were able to reach the destination. So they managed to withdraw quickly. And when the Prophet arrived with his men, it was a bit too late because Abu Sufyan had already escaped. But what the Prophet and his army found were bags and bags of Sawik. So this porridge, this food we were just speaking about. There were a lot of bags of it left by the army of Abu Sufyan because they wanted to have less and less things to carry to make their escape route much easier. They needed less clutter, less essential items. One of those items was Sawik. And this is why it became known as Ghazwat al-Sawik, the assault or the incursion of Sawik. Not quite a battle because there wasn't any fighting that took place. And therefore, a famous event in Islamic history is actually named after this food, Sawik. Now, we're not obviously going to just talk about it, but let's try and make it. The ingredients are simple, right? You're going to need some sort of wholemeal or whole wheat flour or oats. You're going to saute them, maybe with a bit of butter, some honey, and then you're going to get some dates, crush them or mince them, and then put it all together. And we'll see what it tastes like at the end. Right, so this is the flour. I actually made oat flour with this, so I've got some oats and I'll mince them, and then you're going to put them in a pan and saute it just like that. You can add some butter in there, some milk as well to give it a nice sort of consistency, and then the main part, dates. You can mince the dates using a blender, but I prefer to do it by hand because it just gets all messy and sticky in a blender, and it just feels more original that way, more medieval, let's say. So you're going to mince till you get it into a nice pasty consistency, just like that. You're going to scoop it up and then whack it in the pan with the sauteed or the roasted flour or oats. And you're going to mix that all together now. Oh wait, let's get the extras as well. Never waste any food. Scrape all of it off and mix them all together whilst you have a light heat on there. Then you're going to take it and spread it out on your wooden board, and this should be the result. You can make it into any shape or size depending on your preference, and guess what? That tasted absolutely delicious. 10 out of 10. It actually tasted like a flapjack. I don't know if it's supposed to taste like a flapjack, but maybe that's a medieval version of a flapjack. And yeah, definitely give it a 10 out of 10. Guys, please make sure you like, subscribe, leave a comment, and we'll see you again very soon.